Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Thursday, April 9th, 2020. Thanks for joining us today. This is our third episode of What's the Deal, featuring myself, Pat McMullen, and Tim Scoutelas. We're going to cover today the appraisal process. So we've done two other ones of these. The first one that we did was on pricing and reporting and different things that you should be looking at. But we thought, today we'll cover appraisal. We got a lot to get to. So Tim, anything to say to the good folks out there?
Do you want to just, in case anybody wants to know who you are, how to get a hold of you?
Yeah, there's my info right there.
That's you?
Company. It's me. I've been with the company 13 years. I run the strategic team, some of our biggest accounts that are out there. And Tim is part of that team with me.
Yeah, so that's me. That's my contact info. And if you guys want more content like this, you can join our Facebook group, Live from the Backlot, UCMs only. Hit me up after this or via email. It's Tim at Max Digital, and we will get you an invite.
One other thing, Tim, before we get started, in the box to the right-hand side, when you logged in, there's a spot for questions. So if you have any questions, put them in there. I'll be monitoring it throughout, and we'll try to answer anything that you guys got. So Timmy, over to you.
Yeah, so the appraisal process. I think it's well, I think probably, if you're on this call, you've done an appraisal, you've been involved with looking at a trade, but I think in today's uncertain times, it's definitely worth our time and effort to just cover the basics. Pat and myself, we're gonna sprinkle in some time-sensitive tips, tricks, anecdotes that we're hearing from around the industry. And if you guys got any questions, let's bring them up. So the appraisal process, right? The way you see the in the first look homepage, right? Everything on the left-hand side refers to our appraisal system. And quickly and easily, we're going to tell you, what percentage of trade appraisals are you taking in? At this location, they're closing at about 30%. I get a lot of questions. What's good? I think good is, getting every trade that you can and be able to, break out or make a little bit of money in your immediate wholesale and continue to close and generate retail deals. If you're a 30% store, your goal should be to get to 35. If you're a 50% store, your goal should be to get to 55. To say blanket, right? Would you agree to say blanket, every store should be at 60? This is not the way it is.
Yeah, small increments.
Yeah, exactly. So how do we enter an appraisal? There's a lot of ways we can enter an appraisal. The most effective way is just right here into the trade analyzer. You enter the VIN, right? And it'll take you into an appraisal, all right? So this is the Appraisal Manager. We're gonna cover this back in a moment. But once we enter the VIN, right, the first page that you're gonna see after you book out the vehicle is gonna be our Cost to Market Appraisal tool. So Patrick, why don't you walk us through this?
Yeah, so on our last one, we talked about pricing. The same analytic engine that drives our pricing market data also drives our appraisal market data. So Tim and I both worked at CarMax long time ago. We always looked at what does it take to retail that vehicle, not what is my exit strategy on wholesale. Now, if it's a car that you intend on retailing, you can go straight to the books, get your number. But if it's a retail car, let's look at what is it going to take if I bring that car in this morning and put it on my lot this afternoon. Where do I need to be priced at? And then working backwards. So that's why we land on this page first. All the data that you need, Tim, if you can scroll down just a tad. The first section is all the market, and how we talked about this in pricing. How do we slice and dice the market up? There's multiple different ways to do that. If you look on the top toolbar, you can, just like in pricing, you can look by different years. So we're appraising a 16 right now. If we wanted to see the 17s or the 15s, I think what's really important, other trims as well, is drivetrain and obviously transmission, but mostly drivetrain and engine. So Tim, why don't you touch on that and why?
Yeah, so I every time I come to the desk and show a new user, I stress this bigly. Here's why. Right, so we're looking at 54 of these Suburbans, but if you're in Charleston, South Carolina, I'm pretty sure a four-wheel drive doesn't mean squat. right? You're probably more interested in what the two-wheel drive money is, because that's probably what's in your market. And those are the guys that are in Minnesota or in the Northwest or the Northeast. You're probably interested in the four. You've got to make sure that you're drilling the market down to what's important to you.
100%.
Same with engines too, right? This truck only comes with one engine, but imagine some pickup trucks come with multiple engines.
Yeah. If we go over to the right, what we're looking at there, that 113 overall and 54 matching, that is within that 250-mile radius. What is out there? So the 113 represents the 2016 Chevy Suburbans, but the 54, we take that inventory or those listings and we boil that ocean down. So we actually have 54 that match exactly what we're appraising right now, which is the LTZ. So that's how the data is kind of put together. Then anything that you do where Tim's at right now in drivetrain or engine, that'll resort the data and either add or subtract. So in this case, when he went to four-wheel or rear-wheel drive, it went from 54 down to 19. So you can kind of get as specific as you want. To move along, you can also sort by equipment and then packages too. So this happens to be a Chevy store. So if he knows that this has a LTZ preferred package or a Sun Entertainment package, we can click on that and it'll then even bring those listings down a little bit deeper into what apples to apples, if you will. Tim, touch on the mileage, because you did a good job on that when we talked about pricing.
Yeah, so by default, we will show you everything that's in the marketplace from 0 to unlimited mileage. I'm a big believer in searching like a customer searches, so starting out wide and coming in closely. That's what we do here. I think in this particular instance, we've got a 16 model year truck with 55K. We certainly might want to throw out, I don't know if 113, even 100, probably 90,000 miles, maybe even a little less, I could argue. But I see this a lot, is where guys are getting rid of the low mileage things too. And we've talked about this a couple of times, especially in this market where I think prices and conditions are going to change quickly. Be careful of shrinking your market so small that you limit the sample size and convince yourself you're the only one out there, or a limited market size.
Yeah, we saw that on pricing. The store that we were using got so granular that they missed a car with half the mileage that was actually priced $500 less. So you gotta look at all of them.
But be careful. By default, we will only show active listings. A lot of guys who use our system who come over from vAuto, I think this is a little different. You will see, I think they show recent and active. Okay, so if you want to see that data, you can click there. We do include both certified and not certified. So if you're a store that might consider certifying this and you want to see that market, right, we can sort those out for you as well. So why don't you talk a little bit about the calculator?
Yeah, so you can see that this is a real appraisal at a real store. The number that they arrived at was 33,500. If you look at the pricing toolbar, very similar to what you have when you're pricing a vehicle, it's going to show, if I'll go back to my analogy, if you bring this car in this morning, where do I need to be priced at when I put it online? So we do the math for you. So target gross profit, let's say Tim, out the gate, they were looking for, $2,000. And then estimated recon or something like this, what do you think? 17?
Yeah, I mean, I see 15 to $2,000, so I'll say 1750 as an average. Maybe less.
Yeah. So when Tim did that toolbar in the middle, or the pricing bar in the middle, kept rising up. So this tells you, if I put 33.5 on it, target gross profit at $2,000 and estimated recon at 1,700, my price that I would put online would be 37,250. Where does that put you in the market? 97%. Now, if we wanted to see those market listings, right below there, you click on the 14, and now you can dive even more granular and sort this by mileage or export this or whatever. A lot of people will export this to show the customers. If customers asking for crazy money, they'll take the listings that are out there for retail and say, there's no way I can give you what you're asking for because you're asking for retail money versus wholesale money.
Hey, so a little trick. If you enter the target gross profit and the estimated recon and hit save, I think it takes the 37,250 and then it puts that right here in the market, so you can get an actual, hey, this is, if everything was equal, this is where you would land in the marketplace. Let's sort by miles. You can see. That'd be all right. Not too bad. Yeah. Okay, good. right? So we'll share with you the market days supply overall. So just to Patrick's point earlier, this is for the overall, the 113 units is over the, so this is good to talk about right now. This is currently in the cost to market appraisal tool. We show the market day supply over the last 90 days. And I think in normal conditions, the last 90 days is probably, that's been the norm for the last 10, 15 years. That might not be the case right now. So definitely, we're going to show you something else inside the system to better gauge. But these numbers could be growing as we move forward. 52 is the matching, the way we defined our competitive set, whether with mileage and equipment and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So I think in the current environment that we're in, Tim, I think sales data is probably uber important right now. So if you click on the retail performance tab, unless there was anything else you wanted to cover there.
Nope.
Yeah. So when you click into store performance, we have your actual sales data from your DMS. It's not what your last listing price was and then what it went out on when it left online. We all know we're not selling exactly for what we were asking for, right? So the numbers are a little skewed if we were looking at it that way. But on store performance, you can see what is the actual front end gross profit that I make on this car. So this particular store on this trim level, $103. Well, they've only sold 3 in the last 26 weeks of the LTZs. So maybe we want to dive into the deals. Maybe there was one that was a big loser that offset that average. But if we see here, there was one that was a pretty significant loser. But the 2 that we sold that we made money on, 437 and 515, split that in half, you're looking around about 470, if you will. So that $2,000 that we put as a target gross profit initially, maybe we're fooling ourselves a little bit. So in that case, if we had to step up on a trade, a nickel or a dime, if we go back to the calculator, it follows you in every screen that you're in. You could change that target gross profit to maybe cut it in half, Tim, $1,000. So if we needed to put that money into the appraisal, especially right now, we were talking about this as a team earlier, but getting rid of your inventory now and running like lean is super important, because the market's not going up obviously with used cars, but it's gonna trickle down even further than it is. When we get into the books, we heard from Manheim yesterday, the retention rate's actually at 90%. So things last week that we're selling, they're 10% under that right now. So I think sales data is super important there. Anything to add there, Tim?
Yeah, so it's good if you're like a Chevy store like this and you've got some sales data, but if you're at a Kia store and you rarely see a Suburban and you're a part of a large group and you use our system, we do share with you performance from across the group. And you can see, obviously the grosses are significantly different. The one thing I like to look at is the days to sale. So you can see even as a group, these guys do really well with the Suburban. Now it is over the last 26 weeks. Again, we take that with a grain of salt, but we can dive into that details right here and see, has anybody, look, somebody sold one of the 15 just the other day, right? Now it did take 42 days to sell, but we can get an idea of what's happening right now with actual transaction data.
Yeah.
So good stuff. Let's move on to the next tab. All right, so probably the most important tab in the most used tab in the appraisal screen is the books and offer tab. It's I call it a very defensive way to appraise cars, and that might not be a bad thing in this environment. But in normal conditions, we want to know what we can retail the car for. That's what we just did. Here's where if I had to wholesale out of this car, or if I was going to run to the auction, what would I pay for it? We'll give you that with the auction data from Manheim and AAA. You've got your NADA, your black books, your KBB, all the stuff that consumers
Gals for the Northeast. Yeah. Let me ask you a question on books, Tim. Do you think, from what you're hearing out there, do you think the books are truly representing the current market conditions for what's going on out there?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, I don't think so either.
If I'm a book, listen, if I'm a book, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm not going to show a big drop in prices, because that's going to put some panic into the marketplace. I think you'll see slowly every week a little bit of decreases. So
what was that stat? what was that stat you told me yesterday about the no sales across the country right now?
I
Something
mean,
like
we're seeing 50%, 65% no sales.
Yeah.
That's all.
So, we're not hitting our floors. So just be cautious on that. If you're using that as the true guide, look at your sales data, look at the market. I think sales data is the key to this whole thing.
And hey, here I'm gonna pull out something from the CarMax days. Call somebody. No, call
Yes.
a friend. Call the guy. If you're at a Chevy store and you're looking at a Kia, call the Kia store. Hey man, what do you think of this? What would you put on this car?
Yep.
I don't
We had
even challenge them. Would you take it for that?
Probably not at your level at CarMax, Tim. You had to call anybody, but as I was coming up, I had to get three calls from senior buyers to figure out if my number was crazy.
My wife still makes fun of me today. We used to eat dinner with the phone on. Hey, can I call your car, Tim? All right. Moving on. No one really cares about those stories. Moving on. Let's see here. Books on. Oh, the Max My Trade tool.
Yeah.
So for those of you that have heard or currently are subscribed to our Max My Trade tool, the customer offer form that we've developed, I'm hearing stories this is doing a tremendous job with customers today who are, because you can't come to the store, right? So it's even now more important than ever to get the customer involved in the appraisal process and the figure that we put on the car. Yeah. And this Max My Trade tool absolutely does that.
And if I'll throw this out there, if you don't have this tool currently, we're doing remote appraisals. It's values are dropping consistently. If you don't have this, call us, and we could probably work something out for the next 2 months or so to get it turned on for you, just to help you out during these tough times. Free of charge, of course. But if it's something that you want to learn more about, just reach out, and Tim or I can help you with that.
All right, so that's kind of the appraisal process from inside the desktop. I was going to show a couple of slides of the mobile tool. Would that be all right?
That's totally relevant right now.
Yeah, I mean, so, if the cool thing about the mobile tool, let's see if you guys can see this. Okay. So if you do not have access to the First Look mobile appraiser, you can download it in the Apple store or Google Play. I'll send you the link if you're interested. But you'll notice when you log in, right, it'll have the name of your dealership, a couple of selections here. I like the one here where you can go in and customize the settings as a user. You can it's all about speed with the mobile. You can default what type of an appraisal you want to do, a trade or a purchase. You can put in those default estimated recon and target gross profits. One of the things that I stress when I go over the mobile tool is I wish we would, this is just not named correctly, where it says history. This should say Appraisal Manager. Okay, yeah. So think of this as your Appraisal Manager. Here, when you log into your store, these are all the appraisals that are waiting. These are all of your trade and purchase appraisals that are in there. So you could just run out to the car. If it's already been put in, you could just pull it right up right there.
Yep.
Some quick screenshots of the detail pages here where you can put in some information. You can get a vehicle history report, our cost to market price appraisal tool, and you can even upload photos too. Okay, so there's some detailed views of that. You can take as many photos as you want. You save those photos, we'll put them into the system for you. Really getting granular, if you hit the blue check mark here, the photos will be marked as advertisable. Yes, that's a word that we made up. We'll send those photos online for you, okay?
Well, no, that's important for time to market to get your cars out there as quick as possible. Absolutely. Because inside the appraisal tool, there's a button called Take an Inventory, and it'll any pictures that you deem as retailable will then push over to your Max suite, and then we push it online. I got two things here real quick, Tim. This isn't just for mobile appraising. This actually has all your inventory that is currently in stock right now. So I think, if you walk the lot, a lot of us have downtown right now. Use this tool to walk the lot and look at the books and look at the market and look at where you're priced while you're standing at the car. I mean, how many cars have you walked in your life, Tim, on a daily basis? Back in your old days, it was part of our regimen. So use technology now. And the other thing is this is absolutely free to anybody that has our program. So there's no upcharge here. So just go, like Tim said, go into your Apple store or your Google Play store and download it, and it's the same username and password that you use to get into the system.
Yeah. So,
All right. So in the looking at the time here, we still got a bunch of people on hanging in there. Let's hit a couple more things that we think would be most useful to folks
all right.
out
I do
there.
see a question in there. We will get to the question. What were we going to do next? Tim, we will get to your question. Good question, Tim. Follow up. So a couple of ways that I to use the tool as a follow up. How do you, I missed some missed appraisals. I always call it, the missed appraisal report. So I use the Appraisal Manager here. And the thing I like about it, you can go to all of the trade appraisals. So if a trade appraisal is still sitting here in the Appraisal Manager, come over here and sort by risk. And then here are all of your green light vehicles, right? So we talked a lot about how do we light the cars in the system based on your performance. So if you're at this Chevy store, right? Hey, why wouldn't I want this Suburban we just talked about? Why did, you could follow up with Donald and find out why Mrs. McCarthy didn't, trade it in. I think one of Patrick's, one of your favorites is the Make a Deal tool.
Yeah. So the Make a, is that a static coming from you? The Make a Deal tool. So this looks at every appraisal that we didn't capture the previous day, and based on a set of rules behind the scenes, it'll pull those back up. So things from it's an understocked unit that we need. It may, if you're part of a group, maybe it's an understocked unit at a sister store. If you have if you're back a book by a certain dollar amount, it's just think of this as like an appraisal, a manager inside the box, looking at all your appraisal sheets and saying, hey boss, check this one. We may have missed this one. And that's super important right now.
And last thing we wanted to touch on is we've looked at Max reports a little bit each and every day. If you log into Max reports for your location, slide over to the appraisal section, you will see a bunch of appraisals here. Reports here around appraisal, profitability, trade analyzer usage. You could slice and dice the appraisal lane. I'm a big proponent of the appraisal lane. If you're not trading cars, you're not selling cars. So,
yeah. So Tim, we got a couple questions in here that I'd like to get to. Yeah. How do I find an old appraisal that I've done?
So great question. There's a couple different ways. You can always enter the VIN right here in the trade analyzer. Okay. That'll always bring you up on an appraisal. Depending upon the thing, most appraisals will stay active for 90 days. Inside the Appraisal Manager, they cap out at 30 days, but the setting at your store could be different. Another way you could search, if you knew the last 3 or last 6 of the VIN, you could put that here, or even the customer name. So a couple of different ways. Was that the question?
That was the question.
Okay.
Since we're finishing up here, can you unmute the folks out there? Someone put a question here, data to put the right number on the trade. I'm not 100% following that question. So if we can unmute everyone, and whoever asked that question, maybe we could elaborate a little bit more.
Okay, all right. Now I'm going, attendees out here. Let's see. Oops. All right, everybody has been unmuted.
All right, so the person that asked data to put the right number on the trade, are you still out there by chance?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for taking my question.
Yeah, of course.
So my full question, if the books are not accurate, to your point, Tim, and the auctions are experiencing wholesale, 60 to 70% no sale, excuse me. So the auction data is kind of disturbed right now, and it's always a little to be behind. But yeah, if we don't have books, we don't have market data, and there's a lot of fear out there. Patrick, you had said, you need data right now. You need to be making decisions based off of factual data. What's the best way to do that? I mean, obviously, if I look at what pricing is online, like you said, to try to retail off the car, I can look at my competitive set and see what other dealers are doing. But this has always been given us the ability to kind of foretell the future a little bit.
Yeah.
What's the best practice on that right now? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Tim, I think I would go back to the sales data and looking at, have I sold something like this most recently? And then the gentleman that asked that question, are you part of a group or a single point?
We have a Chevy and a Cadillac franchise in a single point store, basically aligned on the middle down, right down the middle of the store.
Gotcha. So you couldn't take advantage of the group performance like a bigger group like Hendrick or the likes, Tim. But I think in the appraisal process, looking at the sales data, and if you have, and remember it's 26 weeks back, so sorting it by relevancy on date just to see what we've been able to do. That's where I would go first. Tim, do you have another another suggestion?
Yeah. Continue to stay tuned to what's going on in the marketplace, Tim. If you're at the Chevy store, like you said, and you're looking at a Kia, a late model Kia, and you have no idea, I would leverage forums on the internet and try and get a window sticker from a friend, call a guy who, and get an invoice. I would take the market listings that are online now with a grain of salt, knowing that guy might not even be changing his prices now. I would get involved with the customer. We showed our Max My Trade tool that walks hand in hand with the customer about the appraisal process and explain to them, Mr. Customer, we're excited to sell you a new car today, but I want to make sure you understand here's where we're at on your trade and here's how we got there.
Yeah, on that Max My Trade piece, the customers that use it, they're seeing significant results in under allows. So they're setting themselves up in a good position because what it does is it takes the book value and then based upon the rating scale that the customer did with the salesperson. So if we're using KBV, for example, and we rated the car at a 77%, 100 being brand new car, 77%, it's actually taking 77% of that value and giving that as the offer. And we're seeing tremendous success with that. So they're under allowing, so they're setting themselves up in a good position to own the car right. So if you're interested in that, like I said, we're trying to help our dealers out as best as possible. So we're offering up all sorts of tools that are usually upcharges. Just reach out to us and we can walk you through that a little bit more in depth. I think that could help along with the sales data. And then Tim, I'm sorry, does anybody else have a question now that we're open?
All right.
There's
Cool.
one here, and there's one here in the list. How do I find an appraisal that I did on a current inventory piece?
Oh, great question. I don't know if we've covered this. So at any time, we can take a look at the e-stock card. There's a lot of different ways we can get to the e-stock card. I'll use this Hyundai Santa Fe here. We did this yesterday. At the very bottom of the e-stock card here, you'll see a appraisal information tab. You can see just kind of like the highlights from the appraisal. And if you click here, you will be able to view the appraisal. It's actually pretty helpful. It takes you back to what was the information on the day that the guy appraised the car. So if you're like, what the was he thinking? You can go, oh, well, okay, that's what the books was, that was the market was. You can go back and update all the information and then get
Tim, one thing I just thought of, if you scroll down, this is for current appraisals today. The notes section right here. We've been talking to a lot of dealers, and we have dealerships or dealership groups. They're working 6 days on, 6 days off, just to try to keep social distancing. If you're appraising a car and you're part of a team, utilize that notes section, because if that customer leaves and comes back when one of your coworkers is on and there's no notes in there, they really don't have an idea of how you arrived at that number. So we got the extra time now because traffic unfortunately is down, but take the time to put those notes in there and help each other out.
All right. So that's it. Any other questions? What do you think?
I have one last question.
Oh, yeah. Great. Yeah. So
prior Viato user 8 years ago came to Max First Look and been with you guys for 8 years. And I'm just curious, NADA books come out about a week before the month ends. So we'll get like a paper book in the mail of NADA values for May the last week of April. In vAuto, it actually states that you can see there's an option to switch to the new book, because obviously if I'm appraising a car or buying a car on April 21st, but I got a May book in my hand, I'd want to know that data rather than acting like I'm appraising something and buying it $2,000 back, and in a week it's $1,000 back. Is there any talks or anything, I mean, that would allow us to have that data when it comes out, you know, as soon as it's available, rather than appraising on the 31st of the month off of a book that's not accurate anymore?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, NADA with us updated their API, because basically every time that you put a VIN in, we're pinging NADA or Black Book or whomever, and it's pulling that data back. So we updated the API, and that was one of the things that we asked them about. So that is currently in development right now to try to do. They changed their API, so we had to change some stuff on our end. But that is one of the goals of going from a
Flat file.
Yeah, flat file into an API where the data is real.
From the dark ages to you know, 21st century.
So that's a great question. We're working towards that right now. Fortunately, it wasn't part of the initial scope on the API that we did, but that is something that we're working towards. So
good question.
yeah, it's a great question, and I'll let you know as soon as we'll send out information about that. But if you want to send myself or Tim a personal email, we'll make sure to put you in the list as soon as that's ready.
I got his info right here.
Okay,
Thanks,
perfect.
Tim.
Perfect. Thanks, Tim. All right. Well, we went way over today, Tim. This is the third episode.
We went long, but it was all these extra hours.
It was good collaboration between us and the good folks out there. So we just want to wish, hopefully everybody's staying safe. Hopefully we get out of this craziness. I'm ready to travel again. Sick of being cooped up in my house, just like probably a lot of you guys are. So we appreciate you guys joining today. We're gonna continue to try to do these every Tuesday and Thursday. I hope the information that we're giving you is helpful. Some of it might be a little bit granular for some power users out there, but it's getting back to basics, as Tim and I were talking about earlier. So we appreciate your business, and if you need anything, Tim and I are here for you. So thanks again, guys. Have a great day.